1. When designing an instructional module for candidates preparing for the Electrotechnical Certification Scheme (ECS) test, which approach best supports adult learning principles? A. Relying on rote memorization of regulations. B. Incorporating real-life case studies and scenarios. C. Using lengthy lectures with minimal interaction. E. Providing only practice tests without context. 2. A mentor supporting an ECS test candidate wants to encourage reflective practice. Which technique is most effective? A. Assigning repetitive drills without feedback. B. Asking the candidate to recall the exact regulations word for word. C. Guiding the candidate to analyze mistakes and develop improvement strategies. D. Giving the candidate a list of correct answers only. 3. Which evaluation method ensures the most reliable assessment of a learner's readiness for the ECS test? A. Observing practical tasks aligned with safety regulations. B. Conducting informal conversations without structured criteria. C. Offering only a single practice quiz. D. Accepting self-reported confidence as the main indicator. 4. When aligning an ECS test preparation program with regulatory compliance, what should be prioritized? A. Ensuring learners understand national and industry safety standards. B. Designing materials based only on outdated resources. C. Using examples unrelated to electrical practice. D. Avoiding discussion of compliance to reduce complexity. 5. In developing ECS test materials, what is the most appropriate way to integrate communication principles? A. Using jargon-heavy manuals without explanation. B. Providing clear visual aids, structured explanations, and accessible language. C. Delivering all materials in long paragraphs of dense text. D. Allowing learners to interpret standards without guidance. 6. A mentor uses role-play exercises to prepare candidates for ECS test scenarios involving health and safety compliance. This method primarily enhances which learning principle? A. Passive information retention. B. Experiential and applied learning. C. Surface-level memorization. D. Avoidance of feedback loops. 7. During formative evaluation of an ECS test prep session, which feedback practice best supports adult learners? A. Correcting errors without explanation. B. Providing constructive, actionable insights immediately. C. Delaying feedback until the end of the program. D. Ignoring mistakes to avoid discouragement. 8. When evaluating learners for ECS test readiness, which tool best measures both knowledge and applied skills? A. Written multiple-choice questions only. B. Oral questioning without performance tasks. C. A blend of scenario-based assessments and regulatory knowledge tests. D. Random selection of unrelated technical questions. 9. To comply with industry standards in ECS test training, a curriculum developer should include the latest regulations from recognized authorities. A. Use practices that are region-specific only. C. Avoid referencing updated legislation. D. Focus on company policy without external standards. 10. Which strategy best supports adult learners struggling with ECS test concepts related to electrical safety law? A. Linking regulations to personal workplace experiences. B. Assigning uncontextualized textbook readings. C. Expecting learners to memorize the legislation verbatim. D. Minimizing discussions to save time. 11. An instructor notices candidates are disengaged during ECS test prep lectures. Which adjustment aligns best with adult learning principles? A. Increase interactive discussions and case studies. B. Lengthen the lecture duration for full coverage. C. Deliver only practice exam questions without explanation. D. Discourage questions to maintain pace. 12. In mentoring for ECS test success, which communication approach is most effective? A. Listening actively and tailoring guidance to individual needs. B. Delivering uniform instructions without adaptation. C. Speaking with technical jargon exclusively. D. Limiting dialogue to avoid overcomplication. 13. When structuring ECS test practice exams, which evaluation technique increases validity? A. Randomly selecting irrelevant questions. B. Ensuring questions reflect real-world electrical compliance scenarios. C. Designing questions based solely on generic workplace topics. D. Using non-technical content to simplify the exam. 14. Which mentoring practice best ensures continuous improvement for ECS test candidates? A. Setting clear learning goals and reviewing progress regularly. B. Allowing learners to manage without guidance. C. Focusing solely on test scores without reflection. D. Withholding feedback until final evaluation. 15. An ECS test prep curriculum that prioritizes regulatory compliance should include A. Interactive modules explaining the electricity at work regulations. B. Activities unrelated to safety standards. C. Outdated examples of best practices. D. Emphasis only on memorizing acronyms. 16. In adult learning, which instructional technique is most effective for explaining complex ECS test topics? A. Breaking down regulations into practical, scenario-based discussions. B. Delivering all material in one session without breaks. C. Using abstract theories with no practical application. D. Relying solely on text-heavy handouts. 17. During evaluation, how can an instructor ensure fairness when assessing ECS test candidates? A. Apply standardized criteria aligned with regulatory frameworks. B. A. Scoring on personal impressions of learners. C. Grade inconsistently to reflect effort rather than performance. D. Avoid clear rubrics to allow flexibility. 18. Which communication strategy ensures clarity when teaching about electrical safety protocols for ECS test candidates? A. Combining verbal explanations with diagrams and demonstrations. B. Reading lengthy regulatory documents aloud. C. Using acronyms without definition. D. Avoiding real-world examples. 19. A mentor preparing a learner for the ECS test emphasizes analyzing past mistakes and creating an action plan. This reflects which principle? A. Reflective practice for continuous improvement. B. Avoidance of critical feedback. C. Memorization without application. D. Rigid instruction without adaptation. 20. In curriculum design for ECS test training, which principle ensures inclusivity? A. Adapting resources for different learning styles and backgrounds. Using one-size-fits-all instruction. C. Prioritizing advanced learners only. D. Ignoring cultural and workplace diversity. 21. Which evaluation method best balances knowledge recall and applied competence for ECS test preparation? A. Scenario-based written assessments and observed tasks. B. Only open-book written tests. C. Instructor opinion without structured tools. D. Simple recall of memorized facts. 22. When communicating safety-critical information during ECS test prep, what should be emphasized? A. Accuracy, clarity, and conciseness. B. Ambiguity to encourage interpretation. C. Technical jargon to demonstrate expertise. D. Overloading learners with complex data. 23. A candidate preparing for the ECS test learns better by practicing installation scenarios. Which adult learning principle applies? A. Experiential learning. B. Passive memorization. C. Surface reading. D. Observation without practice. 24. Which mentoring action fosters independent learning in ECS test candidates? A. Encouraging learners to research standards and discuss findings. B. Providing all answers without explanation. C. Limiting opportunities for self-reflection. D. Focusing only on short-term memorization. 25. In evaluating ECS test readiness, which formative assessment is most effective? A. Quizzes with feedback linked to real-world safety practices. B. Tests that reveal answers without explanations. C. Observations without performance criteria. D. Exams that exclude safety regulations. 26. Which instructional strategy best helps learners apply electrical legislation knowledge? A. Case study discussions linking laws to workplace scenarios. B. Reading out legislation word for word. C. Avoiding application to real-world tasks. D. Providing only generic workplace examples. 27. To maintain compliance in ECS test instruction, educators must: A. Regularly review and update training to reflect current regulations. B. Use outdated standards to reduce confusion. C. Focus only on employer practices. D. Avoid referencing external regulatory changes. 28. A mentor uses open-ended questioning with ECS test candidates to stimulate critical thinking. This aligns with which principle? A. Encouraging active learner engagement. B. Delivering content without interaction. C. Prioritizing memorization over reasoning. D. Limiting opportunities for dialogue. 29. Which method of feedback best supports adult learners preparing for the ECS test? A. Specific constructive feedback with examples for improvement. B. Generic praise without details. C. Criticism without guidance. D. No feedback until the final assessment. 30. Which curriculum design element ensures effective ECS test preparation? A. Sequence learning that progresses from basic to advanced topics. E. Random order of unrelated topics. C. Focus on advanced concepts only. D. Minimal structure to allow free exploration.